My name is Walter Smith-Randolph, and I'm a graduate of the class of 2010. It's been 5 years since I graduated from the J School. I started in Elmira, New York, and then I went to Flint, Michigan, and now I'm in Kalamazoo, Grand Rapids, Michigan. And so I'm an investigative reporter now. I just started that role a few weeks ago, which is really awesome because I've always wanted to do investigative work. And so now I'm digging deeper and coming up with these longer form stories that are, not the daily turn and burn that we do in local news. One of the great things I love about the J School is that they don't teach you how to be a print reporter or a broadcast reporter or an interactive reporter. They teach you how to be a reporter. Story about people here seeking temporary status in the wake of the Haitian earthquake. And so how I found that story was it was based out of St. Joachim and Catholic Church in Southeast Queens. And I'm actually from Southeast Queens, and I knew that church, I had been baptized there when I was a kid, and I wasn't going to that church anymore, but I knew that there was a large Haitian population. So I made a few phone calls to find out if they were doing anything for what was going on in Haiti, and they told me that it was the Brooklyn and Queens Diocese, Roman Catholic Diocese, was hosting a fair there, so that way people could seek temporary status. I initially went there thinking it was going to be a broadcast story because I am a broadcast reporter and that's something that I was interested in. But once I got there, I realized that it really wasn't a broadcast story. It's more of a print story. So when I came back to the newsroom, I talked to Jerry about it. We also had some multimedia, some pictures. There was also a little bit of a language barrier there, so that's why it made it a little bit more difficult. But I was able to talk about people seeking temporary status from across Brooklyn and Queens, and it was published in the Brooklyn Daily Eagle. In Flint, I got a lot of national exposure. There were so many stories there. I didn't know anything about Michigan, but I decided to go because I knew that there were a lot of stories there. Flint was America's most violent city when I first moved there. And so I went there and I knew that there were going to be a lot of stories. And so I told, several stories that went national. I was on the Howard Stern show. I was on the Daily Show with Jon Stewart. I was on the Katie Couric show. I did a lot of national stories came out of Flint and the Saginaw Bay City area. One of the last stories that I covered was the Flint water crisis. It's one of those stories where you don't know exactly what's wrong, but you know that there's something wrong. And if there's this many people complaining about the water, there's got to be something wrong with the water. And so we finally figured out, or at least somebody else figured out, that there was lead in the water after I had moved to a sister station in Kalamazoo. And so they went back and looked at some of my old stories when General Motors decided to turn off the tap from the Flint River and switch to Detroit, and saw that was on the nightly show. And I was at a bar when that came across, and everyone's like, "Oh my God, you're on the nightly show," which is what happened when I was on the Daily Show. Jerry Hester was like, "You were on the Daily Show." In Kalamazoo, I was at a bar, common theme there, and that's when we found out that somebody was going around randomly shooting people in Kalamazoo. And the bar, they turned all the TVs on to my station, and I saw some of our anchors at 1 o'clock in the morning with continuing coverage, and I'm thinking, I got to go to work because there's a huge story happening. And I learned at the J School that you have to be prepared. And so I went into work at 4 o'clock in the morning. We were on air till 9, 10 a.m. And then I got a tip that one of the passengers in the Uber car, before the alleged shooter went on his killing spree, had posted that they sent out a warning and had called police to warn them that this guy was driving erratically. So I landed that interview in an exclusive interview. The only other person to interview this guy was Anderson Cooper. So I was able to break that part of the story, which was awesome. And what I learned from that, or I guess the lesson from that, is that you always have to be ready. And that's something that the J School prepared me for, because there was one time where I was in Jerry Hester's news service class, and he woke me up at 6 a.m. and said there's a triple homicide at Queensbridge Apartments, which was around the corner from where I was in Astoria. And I went over there and I covered that story, and I was alongside Daily News and Newsday reporters talking about what happened inside this housing complex. And I just was ready to go, and you always have to be ready. And they always say you have to stay ready so you don't have to get ready. My goal is to get back here to New York, whether that be on the local news level or the national level. I know that I got a long way to go. I'm not close to my goal, but I am closer than I was yesterday. And so you just kind of have to keep plugging away. I grew up here in New York City. I grew up watching Channel 7, Eyewitness News. So it's always been a dream of mine to, work at one of the local stations. So, I just keep, doing what I do, and I keep taking the lessons that I learned here at the J School. And I picked up some of the habits from some of the faculty here. I was just joking with Dean Bartlett about how Doug Muzio used to teach class without his shoes on. And sometimes I'm in the newsroom without my shoes on, and my coworkers look at me like I'm crazy. But I guess that's something I learned here at the J School. And Scotty always used to say in her class, why should I care? And that's something that I think about when I pitch a story. Why should someone care about this story? And sometimes you have to convince people why they should care about the story, but that's how you tell the story. This is the reason why this is a story, and this is why you should be paying attention. So yeah, my goal is to get back home to New York City, and it may take a while, but I'm willing to put in the work.